All right, I love the crowd already. You're great. And the difference between you and the students is they're 18 to 22-year-olds. You can figure out what makes you different after that, but I don't think we're a whole lot different. Okay, so what I want to start all of us thinking about is brain health. And I want to take this hour-ish time that I have and convince you that what you put in really does matter. And I know you want me to talk about some herbs that might help with your memory, right? Just tell me what to take, and I'll take it, and I'll feel better. I'm not going to do that. To the very end, I'll mention a few. But what I want you to try to wrap yourself around is it does matter what you eat. If I asked any of you what makes the difference for heart health, I know you could name some things, right? Because you're all really thinking about that. We have much of our lives. We try to get our kids to do that. So brain food, it really is real and it does matter. I think it's important that we just also consider what goes on as far as how our brain ages. During gestation, childhood, adolescence, just to be able to wrap ourselves around, just embrace that we can't stay the same. We're going to age. It's inevitable. And through the years that we maybe, as our brain grows and it's close to adult weight by a young age of 6, and we do prune out things in the teen years. Yes, their wiring is off, if you were wondering, and I'm sure you know all about that. And just as we go along, that your peak years, and I just chatted with 2 ladies, Sarah and Peach, right? Did I get it right? Okay, yeah. I told her to go into nutrition, don't you think, with the name Peach? I'm thinking of taking it. That your great years of thinking of maximum brain capacity, age 22 to 27. It's done. Okay, all right. Let's all leave and go get some fries. But it's not quite. So what starts to happen as we go through our adulthood and go into old age, our brain changes dramatically. And the question is, how fast is it going to change for all of us? Can we do something with our diet to make it change? And when we look at, and I thought I'd show it this way. Number one, I'm going to raise my hand. I never could hula hoop when I was a kid. And I think, oh, I have this to look forward to. How many of you are hula hoopers? Did you get that down? Okay. You're very proud of it. I just couldn't. Okay. It's the hips. Okay. So this is showing you just as far as different fractions of the IQ test that our abilities do decline. So that's real. And I don't want to be depressing about all the things that go on and discuss in a lot of detail about dementia and Alzheimer's, not much at all. But we know that what I want to make a point of is the rates are increasing dramatically. And I know you must know that. One, we're an aging population, but we're looking at the numbers globally, currently over 35 million, tripling by the year 2050. And what I think is very important is this change that's happened recently, since 1980 to 2010, by one measure of statistics translated through CDC, Center for Disease Control, there's been a 55-fold increase in age-adjusted death rate from Alzheimer's. 55-fold? What's going on? What the heck is going on? And a lot of people want to think it's due to a toxin in the water or contaminant in food, and that's an easy answer. We could fix that. Really, the bigger picture has to do with our lifestyle and how, starting today, how we decide to be for the rest of the years, no matter what age we are. So what I'd like to do is get us to think about, is there really a food-brain aging connection? Of course, I wouldn't be here if there wasn't, so we know there is. Can we do something, and what do we need to think about to help slow that decline that's inevitable? Don't believe that it's not going to happen. Though I saw this, maybe some of you saw a truly fascinating show on super geniuses. Albert Einstein, and I have forgotten past that point who else was part of the show. But they talked about Albert Einstein's brain and how different it was, and you could probably comment much better about it. But given those unusual cases, it is inevitable that our brain will shrink in size, neurons will die, and that we'll have some changes. So we'll talk about if we can slow aging. And what I'm more interested in is when we leave this room and you start to choose food starting with this knowledge, what are you going to choose? Are you going to keep your brain in mind? What do you keep in mind now when you make food choices? You can answer. Convenience, cost, time. Are we talking heart health or anything like this here? No? Okay. Am I talking to the wrong crowd? Okay, well, I'll convince you by the end. So we're going to look a little bit at a meal plan. All right, so let's think, and this is through research done with populations over years. Brain research is catching up to what we know about heart health and other organs in the body. But if we look at, we know that keeping your brain active, learning things continuously. We know exercise. We can debate on how many minutes most days of the week that you're doing that, but that's important for blood flow and brain health. Getting quality sleep at night is very important. And this is, again, gathered through reams of data. General health, and we have the plate of food just thrown in there, and people talk about eating healthy and maintaining healthy blood pressure as well as cholesterol levels, but we know specifically that hypertension, that there may be some connection with dementia and cognitive decline. So it's important to look at that. So, and lastly, stress. Can't be good. It'd be great if we had a stress-free life, not in this day and age, and for everybody, we have different reasons about things that stress us. So that's collectively, and maybe in some of the other presentations, you went over some of that. Okay, so there's what may impact brain aging. Let's just take a look at something you probably know a lot about personally that you're striving for as we get older. What's the leading cause of death in the US? Heart attacks, cardiovascular disease. Okay, so if I asked all of you what are some factors that impact heart health, what would you tell me? Hypertension, lack of exercise, obesity, okay, smoking, diet, okay, so there's a theme here. We know that exercising most days of the week, we again can debate on time, may help prevent heart disease as well as sleeping, quality sleep, diet, maintaining healthy blood pressure, blood cholesterol. We know specifically that healthy glucose blood levels preventing type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance. Type 1 diabetes is another story, represents roughly 5 to 10% of the people in the US that have diabetes. We're talking about the later onset, not so late in our population these days, but that aspect. And then stress. So there's some overlap, right? Okay, so what's interesting about this is I want you to think, and I'm going to go over this, is eating for a healthy brain really, would it surprise you if it's that much different than eating for a healthy heart? No? Okay, so we're done. No, we're going to go through, we're going to go through the stuff. But there are some differences, but I want you to think it's not that mysterious. And I know people want to fix and want to supplement and want to make it something magical, but it is, the good thing is it's simple. You're in control. You can do some things to help yourself. So what I want us to do before I talk about the diet is I want to learn about type 2 diabetes. Do you? Yeah. And insulin resistance, that's what we're going to do. It's sort of a weird term, right? Insulin resistance, what are we really talking about? We're going to go through some basics on it. I think it will be helpful. We know that people with Alzheimer's and dementia have very similar characteristics to people with type 2 diabetes. In fact, with type 2 diabetes, your risk for dementia is greatly increased. We see some similarities. And if you're wincing because, oh, I just got diagnosed with that, or I know I have elevated blood sugar levels, let's get a handle on it. You can take charge. You can do some things that will make a difference for yourself. We know that there are millions of Americans with type 2 diabetes, unfortunately, people not getting diagnosed. 40% of the people born right now will develop type 2 diabetes. What does that say about connection with Alzheimer's and what we'll see down the road? Dramatic increase in numbers. So we're headed in the wrong direction on this. So I want to talk about how our body metabolizes carbohydrates, just how we process them. Don't worry, we're not going too deep into this, but I want you to have a visual so that when you choose foods, it will make sense for what goes on inside of you. These are, how would you categorize these carbohydrates besides reading the word unrefined carbohydrates? Would you say these are healthy ones? We have whole grains, potatoes, some green. I don't have everything that's a healthy carbohydrate. A little bit of fruit down there and the bananas. These are called unrefined carbohydrates. We haven't processed. There's some exceptions. I would kick that pasta out, but that was the picture I could get. Okay, then there are these. Okay, let's pause for a moment. Yum. Okay, I know. We all like this stuff. We all like this stuff. But we have, you know, pizzas here, cinnamon rolls. I can confess, those are my absolute favorite foods. I will go to great lengths to get one. So just so you know, that was a hint. All these foods contain, some of them contain added sugar, but refined grain products, there's a difference. We're going to generalize. There's a difference the way the body metabolizes them. They both have the same basic molecular unit, a basic sugar unit called glucose. And we're going to watch how that gets inside the body and what happens when the way it gets inside doesn't work very well. So I want to introduce you to insulin. Insulin is a hall room monitor. Picture an elementary school. Okay, we have a bunch of little kids running around, the glucose. That's the basic unit of carbohydrate. You've eaten a bite of pizza, a bowl of pasta, some candy, or some potato, whatever it is. And to get glucose inside a muscle cell, blood cell, other cells in your body, it can't just walk right in. It needs insulin to knock on the receptor of the cell and say, hey, I got some kids that need to get into this room. So they can do the job, such as providing fuel for that cell. And if your insulin and receptor are working well, the door hears the insulin knocking, glucose gets in, and it gets to do its job. For people who have healthy blood sugar control, this is what's going on. And if we look at time zero, you eat a meal, we see your blood sugar level starting out in a fasted state below 100. It rises in response to eating. The insulin is ushering glucose into the cells. Fair enough? Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so now what happens to someone who the insulin is pounding on the door and the receptor doesn't hear it? It doesn't work very well. It's not sensitive to insulin. It's not hearing the knock. Variety of reasons we'll talk about. Diet, genetics, other lifestyle factors. So with the receptor not responding, the pancreas, who's responsible organ to release insulin, gets the signal, hey, we still have a lot of glucose. A lot of these kids out in the hallway, they're going to be trouble if we don't get them in the cell. And so insulin's desperately working at it. The cells actually on the inside think they're starving. They're not getting the energy they're supposed to. They're telling the brain, hey, eat more. In the meantime, you have all these kids running around in your hallways, which is not good, right? Any of you former teachers or current teachers or parents, or you just know this is not going to be good, right? That they're roaming around. So eventually with the pancreas straining, and there are lots of steps I'm skipping, but eventually the glucose gets in. But we have blood sugar level that's up. We have a lot of kids running in the hallway. So there was our normal blood sugar curve. Here's someone who is insulin resistant, and it develops to technically being type 2 diabetic, and they have a higher fasting blood sugar level. More kids are running in the hallways. And then when they eat, it goes up, and it doesn't come back down to where it should. So you think, oh, so what? So I have a lot of kids running around in my hallway. Really? Let's think about it. What happens? If you had a bunch of children, pleasant little well-behaved children in the hallways, your blood vessels, what do you think would happen? What was that? In large vessels and small, what would kids do unsupervised? They'd get unruly. So that excess glucose is problematic. They're going to have a good time. They're going to rip the wallpaper, spray paint. They're going to damage your blood vessels. The excess glucose is very serious. That's why people with type 1 or type 2 diabetes want to be in good blood sugar control, because this excess glucose leads to cardiovascular disease. We know it causes inflammation, a word we hear about. Just think of things irritated, just not being in the calm state that they should be, and glucose, as well as many other factors, relate to that. Just threw in one thing. People start to lose blood vessel function, may lose vision, they lose circulation in limbs, and we know what bad things can happen. But we also know things go on in blood vessels up in your brain. So that's important. Type 2 diabetes, insulin-resistant precursor, type 2 diabetes is very common. It's happening in teenagers, in 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40, 50. It's not inevitable. You can do something about it, and there's lots that's related. So I just want to show you a Venn diagram. Here's type 2 diabetes. A lot of the symptoms, don't worry too much about the names, but I just want to point out that oftentimes people are obese. They have excess body fat, as we mentioned, high blood sugar levels. If we measured, there's a way that you can get different fluid levels or blood levels or markers of inflammation, showing there's a lot of irritation in your blood vessels, inflammatory markers. We could also look for signs of oxidative stress. I know that sounds fancy. We're going to talk about antioxidants and get a better understanding of those. So just hold the thought, like, what the heck is that? Think of little fires that somebody's setting in the carpet or in your books or just ruining things. We don't want that to happen. We know that with the impaired insulin signaling, there's just issues, low levels of an antioxidant, vitamin C. Well, let's see what we see in Alzheimer's disease. We have some characteristic proteins that change and build up and neuron loss on those other ends, but when we put the two together, we see a lot of similarity. And if we want to approach doing something about cognitive decline and development of dementia and Alzheimer's, we need to do something about type 2 diabetes. Because if a person in their 40s is showing marginally elevated levels of blood sugar fasted, in 10 years, maybe higher, in 20, we go on and we'll see that person maybe in their 70s would develop dementia. And potentially, that's the experts that would define whether it was early or not. But insulin resistance, that insulin not being heard as it's knocking, so many factors. I'm just spewing out some. Of course, genes play a role, but it depends what diet you eat. Yes, excess carb consumption, but there are many other factors. Good things that you might be missing in your diet. Having chronic illness. Inflammation is that funny word, just again, think of things being irritated in your body, that we can do things with our diet to calm that. Different types of fats, different vegetables, items in your diet. And I know we want to look to supplements, but I want to urge you first, let's talk about diet. Exercise. We don't give exercise enough attention when it comes to this metabolic disorder, right? Exercise, actually your body needs less insulin if you exercise routinely. If you go on walks most days of the week that last 30 to 45 minutes, your body's basically, the cells will uptake the glucose. Those little kids get in the classroom with less insulin on board. Sensitivity is improved. You can actually, at early stages of insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, do something about it. Okay, so those are just some of the things. Let's now start talking about food, right? I got to get there. Okay, and we're here. What comes to mind when somebody talks about a heart-healthy diet? There's plant-based diet, so eating a lot of vegetables, anything that's plant. Mediterranean diet. That's gotten a lot of press. I think that's great that you mentioned that. Mediterranean diet, bingo, is one that we know we have decades of research showing that people, through observational studies, who generally eat more plant-based, they include seafood. I'm going to show more and talk more, so it's kind of an eye squinter. But it's just showing you that, on the top of the pyramid, we have meats and sweets, and we're not going to eat a lot of those, very infrequently. Sorry. And then as we move down, you have more frequent consumption. You get olive oil and nuts and fruits and veggies. And we know that observational studies, we're not putting people on these diets, but saying, hey, you've lived 10, 20 years. This group of people has not been eating this way, and we see differences in type 2 diabetes risk, lower with this diet, lower risk of heart disease, and guess what? Lower risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. So there's quite a bit to it. So, pretty food, right? Does it look delicious to you other than the raw fish? Okay. So these are just a few of the foods from the Mediterranean diet, and another health-boosting diet called the DASH diet, dietary approaches to stop hypertension. And this diet is also plant-based. It does include some meat, but many servings of fruits and vegetables. Both of these diet plans include a decent amount of fruit and vegetables, and a variety of researchers over the past handful of years, not as many years as we've known about Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet, have come up with the MIND diet. And I'm just so fortunate we're at the MIND Institute with this diet. You know, it just works out well. It's a Mediterranean DASH intervention for neurodegenerative delay. So this is pulling from the research studies what particular foods showed the best correlation with decrease in dementia risk and other markers for onset of Alzheimer's. Rather than, oh, it's a Mediterranean diet, that's the way to go. Actually, some of the research showed really no fruit shows much in the way of positive effects except berries. Just so far, this is where the research is. So that's interesting. So what I want to do is talk about the MIND diet. We're going to learn about it. We're going to start seeing how we can eat those foods. I'll show you a menu plan. And you ready for it? So this is a diet that, what are we after? We're going to lower our likelihood of developing or curbing insulin resistance type 2 diabetes. It's going to be good for your heart and good for your brain. Okay, so let's go. What's on the MIND diet? Having whole grains. Now, I don't mean eating wheat bread. What I mean is eating wheat berries, eating these whole grains that you go to most grocery stores will sell bags of farro, brown rice, black rice, wild rice. That's what I'd like you to do. The finely milled grains, even though they're wheat bread, and it says 100% wheat, they get into your bloodstream rather quickly, and we know that there's evidence that a diet that has many foods that lead to quick release of those little students in your blood vessels may lead to insulin resistance in susceptible people down the road. Now, this is not difficult, and maybe some of you are doing this. Eat at least one dark leafy green salad or steamed veggie a day. I know some of you, oh, I already do this. Well, good, good. Maybe you're already helping yourself. And at least one other colorful vegetable that day. Okay, and we'll talk about why those things. Berries, at least twice a week. And frozen is as good as fresh. Okay, don't worry about, there are no blueberries in season. It's not a big deal. You just get frozen. They're just as good. We'll talk about why they're beneficial. At least one 1-ounce serving of nuts per day. So we're looking at things like walnuts and almonds and pistachios, not chocolate-covered macadamia nuts. I'll get to chocolate in a little while, but not quite. Or peanut brittle. Beans, how many of you are doing this? At least every other day. This is the biggie I find a lot of people aren't doing. Anybody doing that, or are we just silent taking notes? And black beans, good. Only in the winter time. Okay, well that's a good use of them. We'll talk about how to do it, but can you put beans out of a can on a salad? That's easy enough, and it counts. Good, okay. All right, poultry at least twice a week. Okay, I know you're all going to clap on this one, but it's one 5-ounce glass. And you cannot save them for Friday and have 7. Doesn't work. I always have to tell the college students that when we talk about what's moderate drinking. It still hasn't sunk in, okay? But if you don't enjoy wine, you can drink pomegranate juice or dark grape juice, not sweetened. So those still count. They have the compounds. Fish at least once a week, preferably twice. We'll talk about the benefits of that. Okay, here come the limits. Are you ready? I'll go through them in detail. Okay, you have to limit to saturated fats. Choose olive oil instead of margarine or butter. So that means other saturated fats. So from meats that are high, like beef, that are high in saturated fat, we're going to eat not very much of that. Cheese, yes, you're seeing the word cheese. Sorry. Oh, let's all mourn. Okay, we have to go. Fried food, we'll discuss about how, my theory on how we can work with the cheese limit, but we're trying to watch the type of fat that you're eating, okay, the type of fat. And then finally, for some people, they have something, and less than 5 times a week. Wow. Okay, some people do it twice a day. Is this too little? No, it's a lot. Well, for a lot of people, it is. I look at food logs all day long, and agree they're younger people, but they eat something sweet at every meal, and it might be their entire meal. And they drink, this includes sweetened beverages and everything. So it's basically limiting you to less than the 50 grams of added sugar that's the daily value that nobody comes close to, that I see. So that would mean no sweetened yogurt, things like that. Okay, so some of the research, there are different people who have investigated diet and cognitive decline, but Dr. Morris, at the time from Rush University, looked at observationally at age 58 to 98-year-olds from anywhere from 2 to 10 years, average close to 5 years. And they followed one of these 3 diets. And what they were interested in is not forcing them to eat something, but just they constantly questioned them about how they were following their eating style to keep track of the different types of foods. So they were categorized as following the Mediterranean, which has much more fruit, which is different. It's somewhat different than the MIND diet. Same with DASH diet, a lot more vegetables than what this is prescribing. And they also did a variety of different cognitive assessments over the time period that they followed them. And what's important to note is all 3 diets worked. If they followed them really well, all 3 diets over the time span they were studying a 50% or so risk reduction in developing Alzheimer's in that age group. So it was positive. But what only the MIND diet resulted in, which it emphasized certain foods, like you're going to eat fruit, you're going to eat berries. I'm not saying don't eat a banana, but that was what they emphasized. So that even if they modestly followed it, they weren't the greatest at following it. So they were on it, but they slipped up, like a lot of us probably would. They still had a risk reduction. People who followed the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet that were kind of following it, no risk reduction. So it was kind of nice that they weren't, they were observing the outcome on this rather than making them follow a certain plan. So let's go through the groups and talk about what's so great about them. And green leafy vegetables, kind of ways that you can eat them, and maybe you can share your ways. This is really where we got to start on green leafy vegetables. We live in a spectacular state that we have farmers markets galore. You can get green leafy vegetables here year-round. You can eat it raw or steamed. Steaming, actually, when you have them cooked, there may be better bioavailability, uptake of your intestinal tract by some of the special compounds. So what's so special about green leafy vegetables? And I have pictured here bok choy, broccoli, collard greens, broccoli rabe, and what are some of your favorite green leafy vegetables? Kale, spinach, what was yours? Spinach, that's a good one. Chard. Does turnip greens, very good. Arugula, does anybody kind of go, oh, is it disgusting to anybody? Okra. You guys are just great. I'm so thrilled. Students go, green leafy vegetables. Does a Skittle count? Yeah, Skittle. Right. It does. Fine. Roasting, there may be some lost high heat cooking, some loss of some of these protective content. I'd mix it up. I'd do different things, different days. These green leafy vegetables are rich in antioxidants. What the heck does that mean? Is anybody mystified by that word? You're not? You just say, oh, okay, I'm just going to believe whatever it means, right? Well, okay, it means something very specifically inside of you and what goes on. So vitamin C is an antioxidant. It's a protector. Vitamin E, as an elephant, is an antioxidant. I'll address again, but compounds in green leafy vegetables help improve blood flow. Athletes actually grind up spinach and turnip greens and drink it or take a dehydrated form to help their performance. A lot of athletes. Yeah, zucchini's good too. That's a great one. Okay, let's look at what antioxidants are. And I'm only going to pick 3 right here. Vitamin C, beta carotene on the right, and vitamin E. If there was a fire that broke out here, just somebody was playing around with matches in the back, one of those glucose kids that got in, you'd probably run for a fire extinguisher, right? Because if a fire happened and we let it, oh, no big deal, it could, what? It could burn. That's good. Good. We're on a good start. It could spread. And we don't want that damage to go elsewhere. We want to just put it out. Well, think of your body. Every single cell is a busy kitchen. It's got a lot of stuff, so it's a busy commercial kitchen. We have a pizza oven. And if we were able with this data projector, it says mitochondria. That's the little pizza oven inside your cell that oxidizes, breaks apart carbohydrates and fats for energy. We got to shove them in that pizza oven and out comes calories that we're able to use. The cytoplasm, the real watery part of our cell, is another cooking station, and other reactions happen there, as well as this cook station, the stir fry, sort of quasi, we like fat-soluble things. Near it, we have a fat-soluble antioxidant called beta carotene. So if any fire broke out, if it broke out in the pizza oven, we wouldn't want it to damage the rest of the cell. So we need to have specific dietary antioxidants to help put out the fire. So I've mentioned 3 very traditional ones that you hear about, right? We hear about vitamin E. You hear about vitamin C and beta carotene. So there's our fire. We don't want it to spread. That antioxidant stationed in the cytoplasm, water-soluble vitamin C, there it is. It's going to put out the molecular oxidative damage that could cause other problems in your cell and ultimately blood vessels in your brain and elsewhere. This is just 3. There are hundreds in your diet. If you eat green leafy vegetables, berries, other items in your diet. So don't just think of a vitamin C pill, oh, I'm covered. I'm covered. I take this vitamin C pill. Absolutely not. You have hundreds. That's why a bar, a pill, a nutrition supplement is so inadequate relative to what real food provides. So I'm just going to back just because I want you to see these green leafy vegetables. They're beautiful. We can't even begin to count all the different compounds that are in these green leafy vegetables. They're all green. You might think that's boring, but if I took the chlorophyll out, you would see an array of yellows and oranges and reds, because the chlorophyll is what we see, green. Take that pigment out, we see red and yellow and orange of the different 400 different carotenoids, which beta carotene is just one of them, that color fruits and vegetables. So there's lots to have just in that one. So I wanted to spend some time on that. Now, you need to have another serving of colored vegetables, at least 1 per day. What's so great about these? We have the word colored in colors. What do you think? Why would you want to eat colored vegetables? Why don't you just stick with broccoli that covers in both groups?
There's some food value to each of the colors.
Absolutely, good answer. So I see the purple onion, the red pepper, all those color compounds, of which there are scads of them, serve as antioxidants. Think of where the tomato is growing. We just finished tomato season here in Yolo area. Yeah, they're just delicious. That tomato is baking out in the sun. Do you think it has some environmental issues it's facing? Absolutely. And so it has protectors in its skin and in its flesh. We eat that tomato, we get some of those same compounds in us. That's what it's all about. That's why you want that variety. Nuts. Look at the color here. You probably don't think nuts are boring. They're not boring. They have lots, and especially when you get the skin on. I'm not suggesting you eat a hazelnut shell. That would be rather dangerous. But the variety is wonderful. So there isn't one best nut. Don't think that you have to pursue walnuts or whatever the news is saying today. Okay, sorry about that. The nutrition world always likes to jump on things. But they contain essential fats, which we'll talk about some in a moment. And Phytonutrients, that's another word that we can put as an umbrella term for the antioxidants. They may have anti-cancer action, they may help blood vessels, vessels in your brain, and etc. So lots of wonderful things there. And this is the fruit that's recommended, berries. What do you see color-wise? Blue, red, purple, deep, rich anthocyanidins. These, I say just put a berry in your mouth and don't talk about what's in them, other than they're great for you. And we know that we call blueberry a superfruit, right, or a superfood. All fruits and vegetables are great. There's not one that ranks higher than another. It's just enjoy them, and remember, fresh is as good as frozen. You're striving for a cup. Okay, so most days you want to be getting it. This is the minimum twice a week. So if you enjoy them, put them on your oatmeal, put them in your smoothie, have them as a snack. Yes, dried blueberries have some of these compounds, but some are lost in the drying process. Question?
Do pomegranates and grapes fit in there?
Yes, pomegranates and grapes do. They go more in the category with wine, in that there's a different set of flavonols that have that benefit, but they still count. And it's pomegranate time, right? You can put those seeds in your salad. So this is just a wealth of different antioxidants. Beans. What are we doing with beans, people? This needs to be consumed every other day, not seasonally. You can eat them cold, you can eat them room temperature, you can eat them in soup. You can put them in a burrito, just not a lot of cheese. Sorry. Lentils, very good. It's super good. We have some pictures of them up there. So you make lentil soup. Good deal. That's great. Antioxidants in the colorful beans, and we're looking at cup serving. So we have fiber. Now, I'm not able time-wise, I'm probably going to go. There's a lot to be said that we're still learning, lots to learn, about how foods that we eat impact our bacterial profile, the microbiome, and what compounds those bacteria make, how they affect other cells in the body, and ultimately might affect brain health. Don't have enough information to say that yet, but you can't go wrong with getting real food in your diet that's a good source of different types of fiber. Whole grains. Now, this is a bad picture, and I want to ask you, why is it a bad picture of whole grains? We have some white bread, we have pasta that's plain, but there are some good items there. So I want you to always look for and see if you can go to the store and buy something that's in the whole grain form, like brown rice or black rice, which those two, they're both great for you. They have different color compounds. There are multi-grain packages you can get. What your goal is, the less processed, the better. And then you say, oh gosh, but it takes an hour to cook up farro or some other whole grain. Cook it up once for the week and then use it. Have steel-cut oats in the morning, all different types of whole grains. And so we're looking again at fiber, vitamin E, antioxidants. I could be given a discussion on heart disease, and we'd really bring up these same items. Okay, seafood. This was a twice a week based on research. The Mind Diet ultimately said at least once a week, a serving being 3 to 4 ounces. There are some seafood that are higher in what we're looking for, and that is omega-3 fats, which I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about. I'm just going to guess you've heard about omega-3 fats. Probably more so in relationship to heart health. Question?
What about mercury levels and things that are in the ocean that they're saying, like Dr. Oz? I don't know if you like him or not. I'm sorry.
He's not my best friend. I think he makes people panic. It's just my thing.
Okay, so you hear like people say, oh, we eat it once a month because of the pollution in the ocean and the farm fishes and stuff like that. So how do you take that into consideration?
What I take into, the question has to do with contaminants in seafood. Is I stay away from, what I recommend people do is stay away from certain fish. Swordfish, the bigger the fish, the more medium fish it ate. The medium fish ate little fish, and so there is a concentration of heavy metals in that giant fish. So yellowfin tuna, swordfish, shark. Hopefully you're not eating shark. Okay, so eating wild-caught salmon, there are some ethical issues. Some people don't want to consume something that isn't sustainable, but generally smaller fish are great and not to worry. Okay, people go nuts. There are bigger things. Okay, vitamin B12, don't want us to forget about that. There are reasons why this is not a vegan diet. Has anybody noticed that? We do include animal products in this. So let's look at what omega-3s. They're very liquidy at room temperature. Where do fish live? In cold water, ultimately very cold water. So they need to have liquid fats so that their body is supple in the water. If their bodies were made of saturated fat, solid, they would be stiff as a board in the water, and that just wouldn't work. Even if their bodies were made of monounsaturated fats, olive oil. Have you ever put olive oil in the refrigerator? And what does it do? It hardens. So they can't have monounsaturated fats. Those are heart healthy, yeah, but they need really liquidy fats. So if you look at whale blubber, seal blubber, same thing. It is a major component in the cell membranes and other portions of brain cells. In fact, you could look specifically at higher levels of certain omega-3s in various portions of the brain. We know that they make cellular mediators that help improve brain function and that they can help calm some of the inflammation that's going on, especially as neurons age and cell death occurs. In fact, there was just a study out today looking at omega-3s fed to an animal model for Alzheimer's and looking at cleanup of waste products that occur in an aging mouse model to mimic Alzheimer's disease and the benefits of this fat in the diet. Now, early humans used to get a lot of omega-3s in their diet. We have such changed our food supply, consuming less fish, less wild animals. Some of the free-range items that you pick that are raised humanely may have slightly more, or organic meats and milk may have slightly more of a different form of omega-3s, but still have them. It's something to think about. They are a lot more expensive, but we know that seafood works. I thought I'd show roasted turkey because we're close to the time. Poultry, this is twice a week. Lean protein source, it's a source of vitamin B12. So B12 again. So that was in seafood, that was in poultry. So those are our main protein sources. Using olives and olive oil, that's your fat to cook in. Why? Because it's got heart healthy, and now we'll just say brain healthy fats in terms of we know it causes less inflammation. And see the greenish color? We have some olive particles. Those plant compounds are in the olive oil, helping out there. Red wine, I know you were waiting for this, but I wanted to remind you of the serving size of that. And if you don't enjoy alcoholic wine, red wine, that you could go with the red juices that are not sweetened, like very tart pomegranate juice, cranberry juice, or just non-sweetened red grape juice would work. And again, we have these color compounds, resveratrol. There are many others that are in these. So let's look at what we have to limit. That's a picture of lard. If you've ever gone to the store and buy that, we could melt that down and fry something in it. Butter. So we have to limit that to less than 1 tablespoon per day, but think about all the places it is in other foods. You probably, oh, I never eat that stuff, right? I don't eat lard. Well, look at the label. You might be. You might be consuming vegetable shortening, and this includes trans fats, which should be out of our food supply in the next year or 2 or 3. And so this also includes animal fats that we would get in beef. So it is rather restrictive. So this does mean shifting. Those types of solid fats promote inflammation, irritation, and they stress the blood vessels and the cells in the body for oxidative stress, damaging them. This is a toughie. 1 serving is 1 ounce. Yeah? You'll give up your butter if you can have more. I like that thought. I don't know. I don't know if you could do that. It's rich in saturated fat. I don't want to believe this, meaning I don't think all the research is in to really put this out, but let's go by it, okay? I think it is important to honor the type of fat that's in it, but I think it's also important to talk about how we're going to cope with this. Well, harder cheeses are better, and what you can do is make it look bigger than it is. We can just deceive ourselves. So you can use grated hard cheese twice a week, a ½ ounce, or maybe you could get it down to a 1/3 of an ounce. Just sprinkle it on your pasta and you have the cheese, and there it is, okay? We might have to improvise there, but that's the goal, and it is because of the type of fat. All right, fried foods, for a lot of people, you don't eat this anymore, but it is very common. Fast food is super common in terms of the general population. So if you have an opportunity to positively influence someone to get them to not consume as much, our goal is to limit to less than 1 serving per week. You know, you go out for dinner, you go, oh yeah, sure, I'll have some of your fries, but you wouldn't have ordered them, but now you're eating them. So it creeps in, it really does. And that's, again, the type of fat that promotes oxidative stress and the inflammation inside blood vessels and your brain. All right, refined sugars. And that can be in foods that are obvious. We can have refined carbohydrates back in the cinnamon roll, in the muffin, in the pizza. We want to lower that intake to less than 5 times per week. Oh, I can do that. Oh no, it's hard. It's hard. If you write down what you eat, and I actually have people do now, students, I see student athletes all the time, I have them take pictures of what they eat and email it to me. It's fascinating because when they send me their log, like, wait a minute, you said you drank milk, it really was chocolate milk, and you didn't put this, you know, you forget, or you know, the picture doesn't lie. Hopefully that's what they're consuming. So that's something. We know these refined carbohydrates may lead to insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes in excessive amounts. So this is a big shift for a lot of people. Now, I'm throwing this in because what about this? I mean, to me, we haven't mentioned it. I think it's important to bring up. And right now the research is saying that, well, maybe a couple of cups may help brain health, maybe not. So I can't really say definitively. The research keeps coming up that eating slightly under an ounce of chocolate, it depends on the type of chocolate, and it isn't just dark. It has to be chocolate that the way they process the cocoa powder, that it isn't exposed to alkaline conditions to save those wonderful antioxidants, the flavonols that have beneficial effects. So we're holding on that, so I'm saying to myself, I'm going to continue with those parts of my diet. Question?
How do you find out if the chocolate is meeting that requirement?
Well, you look at the label on cocoa powder, you can do that, and certainly there are some companies that have been good at promoting that that's what they do. They've modified their processing. I will say M&M Mars has done that and has sponsored a lot of the research. So that is a brand that, you know, milk or dark chocolate can have a lot more flavanols than what you would find in another brand. All right, let's put this to work. Easy meal plan. We don't have a lot of foods here. It doesn't mean other things can't be there. We want to try to stick to that. Start simple. Just make a change. Pick one of the things. So let's take a look at, and I just did this for one day. Here's our breakfast. And I didn't put amounts because it depends on your activity level. You can have some other foods with this. Berries and steel cut oats. I'm throwing in the kefir, low-fat kefir, low in saturated fat, has live bacteria. That's going to add some protein, 11 grams per cup. That's my bias coming in. It's not one of the food items, but it's not anything in saturated fat. Okay? Can people eat that for breakfast?
Yeah.
Did I hear a no?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, how about lunch? Bean soup with veggies. If it's summertime, you don't want soup, we could put beans on our salad. So spinach salad, which lots of people eat, olive oil on top. Pick a nut. It could be hazelnuts, but I threw walnuts on it. It can be anything. Iced green tea. We know that green tea has a variety of different catechins are another group of antioxidants. So I'm just throwing in a little flair, so it's not that boring. Grilled salmon, there's our fish serving. Steamed asparagus, wild rice with, oh, let's have a little bit more nuts because they do have a lot of great compounds. And I did put an amount for wine because I wanted you to put a cap on it. It's 5 ounces, okay? With your meal would be preferred for absorption of those compounds. So I hope that seems doable. And as I'm looking at the time up there, I'm going to go through supplements. I want you to think about this as not like, oh, I have to follow a plan. This is a lifestyle. We're going to make adjustments, get there when we can, one step at a time. Don't beat yourself up. What would be a step you would start with if you're not even close to eating this way?
Add more vegetables.
Add more vegetables. And what kind of vegetables? Green leafy vegetables. Go down that produce aisle. Uh-huh.
You know, I kind of eat like this, but the thing that I've taken from what you said
Yeah, absolutely.
I tend to eat kind of just simply, okay, I'm going to have salad with whatever, but.
Yeah, add these items. And then, of course, flare it up.
That's raisins in that oatmeal.
Yeah, you could do that. So obviously you can use your creativity. So if you say, I eat like this and I'm 75 years old and I can't find my keys, all I can say is, well, gosh, I'm glad you eat that way. I don't mean it badly. Is we don't know what would have happened if you didn't eat this way. So it's all I want to put forward is that, you know, it's never any age. Start with this. Any age, make your changes. We want to improve our heart health, vascular health, and so on. Let's just finish up with some supplements. Should you supplement with omega-3s? That's something certainly to talk with your health provider with, but there are two major omega-3s, DHA and EPA. They actually have slightly different impact on brain cells. We're learning more about DHA's more aggressive role in perhaps slowing decline of loss in cognitive abilities, EPA having more of a role with mood disorders. And the question is, for a lot of people, are you going to eat routinely seafood and as sources, or omega-3 enriched eggs, or some of the few other ways that you can get it? This was just out this month, a year-long study randomized with placebo control. They either got 2,000 milligrams of DHA, 2 grams. That's a lot. That isn't something that's in most pills, and it's just that omega-3. Usually it's a mix thrown in with some other fats. Or they were given 2 grams, 2,000 milligrams of an omega-6 fat, corn oil, predominantly omega-6. They measured different, I don't know why that disappeared, but they measured different cognitive, using an IQ test, different parameters there, and they looked at the volume of the hippocampus. And they found in a year's time, and this is a very compelling story, it got a lot of press, that the DHA supplementation significantly improved cognitive function. Now, before you all go rush out and get some, it's very expensive, I want you to discuss with your healthcare provider. There are blood thinning effects of omega-3 fats, and there's more to the story. We've talked about a big array of foods, of a lifestyle. Please don't look at one pill as being the make or break for you. I know you want to do things that will improve your health. I know that we all do, or for a loved one. So we know that is important, but this is just part of the picture. Vitamin D. You'll notice some of these foods were part of the plan. Cheese, out. Dairy products not given a lot of prominence in the MIND plan, but we know that as a person ages, vitamin D status is an issue for a variety of reasons. It's more common as we get older because we lose our ability to manufacture it from exposure to sunlight. Our liver kidney functions, which are 2 organs involved in the conversion of simple cholesterol to active form of vitamin D3, we're just not as good on it. And what are we doing mostly as we age? Probably spending more time indoors, probably protecting our skin with sunblock and clothes. So we generally see this decline. We know that with smaller calorie intakes, our basal metabolic rate, how many calories we need to exist, declines literally every day, but it's 2 to 3% per decade. So if you look at what you ate at 20, we all know we can't eat that way anymore. So it's going to decline about 3% by the time you're 30. Do the math. 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 50. So we have to get by on fewer calories or else gain a lot of extra weight that we don't want. So it's hard to cram everything in this low calorie intake. Vitamin D deficiency is a big risk. We know it is connected with cognitive decline. It's common in elderly people with dementia. What I would do is review that with your healthcare professional to see if it's appropriate. People argue on what is the low level. Latest is below 50 nanomoles per liter as being insufficient. There are a lot of physicians who look at being below 20 as insufficient. So please review that with someone who maybe is more up to date. All right, vitamin B12 and folate. Folate was in the what? It's a quiz. Yeah, you need it when you're pregnant, but you need it all the time. The green leafy vegetables, and B12 was in? Fish, poultry. So this is a diet that supplies B12 and folate. If you're eating a vegan diet, you have to go to a supplemental source of B12. It's not found in plant products. So that's why this MIND diet is animal-based. What's the story behind B12 and folate for brain health? There's quite a bit. We know that's important in a number of different ways in clearing a compound that forms as a result of protein metabolism called homocysteine. It's not uncommon that people have a poor intake. As we get older, there are problems with B12 status, and its associated lack of intake as well as declining levels due to aging is associated with cognitive decline. The supplement studies don't pan out that well. Some of them show a positive effect, some of them show negative. Your takeaway from this is not that we're mixed up all the time, but that instead there's maybe some synergy with what's in food and other foods that we don't understand yet. That when you eat unprocessed green leafy vegetables and the wonderful seafood and you have some whole grains, that there are things going on. So that's why believe in food, question supplements. That's my approach. Believe in food, question supplements. All right, last thing, memory supplements. I know I couldn't get out the door with bringing these up, right? Do you want to hear about them? I don't really have a lot of positive things to say about them, other than you really should review this with your healthcare provider. There are many side effects. Chinese club moss interferes with an Alzheimer's drug that's taken, the latest I read about it. I'm not an expert on these. I don't want to be. It's too crazy. You start messing with things like this, my feeling is you're taking it out of the food, we know simply vitamin E, you start taking a lot of this, you actually run into oxidative damage. They've stopped clinical trials. It's not helpful. It's not helpful for heart health. Where were we getting the vitamin E? Some in fish, but the nuts and the whole grains. Stick to food. Now, is there anything wrong with the multivitamin? No, that fills in the gaps because you have a lower calorie intake, maybe. But please don't rely on this as a fix. Ginkgo biloba side effect, anybody know? It's pretty serious. Blood thinning. Yeah, and you might be on some medications that are for that. You don't mention it to somebody, you run into some problems, very serious problems. So hopefully you got yourself around this MIND diet and feel like, I can do this, I can do some of this stuff, I can grow with this. Never too old to start. I'd say grab a young person and get them going on it and let them know about insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, where our population is heading in a not very good direction if we don't curb that. So I will take questions. Okay, the question is, do nightshade family vegetables like eggplant and tomatoes cause inflammation? If you ate a bushel of them, I would be concerned. If you slice tomatoes and put them in your salad, you enjoy some eggplant as part of a vegetable saute, absolutely not. Okay?
I have a few quick questions. I'll be quick, I swear. So the nuts, any nuts are okay?
I'll repeat it. I'll repeat it.
Any nuts are okay, not just the walnuts that they really tout. And my mom tends to take the skin off them or off certain walnuts. Should you be leaving
Okay,
the skin?
are any nuts okay to eat and should you leave the skin on? The shell should come off.
Yeah.
We established that. Leave the skin on and any nuts are okay. Walnuts are higher in a type of omega-3 that's different than fish oil. It's not converted to the same, as readily to the same, but it is still a beneficial, healthy fat, essential fat to have in the diet.
All right.
Okay?
I know this is a can of worms, but can you comment on GMOs and organic versus not organic?
Okay. The question is about GMOs versus organic and non-organic. GMO, huge can of worms. Coming from a research institute where we do GMO research, I believe they're safe. I say stop fussing about that. Stop putting our energy into that and try to get kids to eat healthfully and exercise, teenagers to eat healthfully and exercise. And organic and sustainable growth, I believe in that. If we can improve and all of us, if we can afford and bring down the prices of these things and look to ways to grow them sustainably, there are some slight differences in nutritional value of organic versus conventionally grown. It's not enough to say, okay, I won't eat any vegetables unless I get organic. Absolutely not. Eat any kind you can get, or fruit, or grains. Question?
Dairy?
Dairy. I'm going to add to that question. Dairy. Can you eat dairy as part of the MIND diet, or what do I think about it? It's not a standout. The recommendation is to eat low-fat, preferably non-fat dairy. And my emphasis is getting cultured dairy products, fermented dairy products that are very low in lactose, by the way, if lactose, the milk sugar, bothers you. It's not a focus in the MIND diet. It is part of the Mediterranean diet and DASH diet. Not excessive amounts, but having that as a source of calcium, good quality protein, vitamin B12 makes sense, but not going overboard. If you're saying, oh great, I'll have ice cream, that's my dairy, we know that's not. Or full fat cheese, or were you gonna go have some ice cream? No. Glass of milk, skim milk, fat-free milk, yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I noticed that avocados were missing in your slides. And can you just touch on how you feel avocados should be used in your diet?
Okay, avocados. How many like avocados? Love them, they're great, and they belong. It's just they were emphasizing olives as the monounsaturated fat. One avocado, 320 calories, most of them coming from fat, most of it monounsaturated. Perfectly great. The green actually is wonderful stuff. It's also some other antioxidants. Now we have to think about, though, that's 320 calories. You would use it to top your salad, maybe to put it over a fish, you know, that you've grilled, something like that. It's not sitting down to as many as you want. Kind of obvious things. But guacamole, I'll stop there. That's good stuff. Oh, wait, we got somebody there.
So if an individual has already been diagnosed with dementia, is this diet helpful with reducing or reversing diagnosis?
Okay, the question is eating the MIND diet helpful for people who haven't been diagnosed with dementia? Absolutely. It's a diet that promotes vascular health, lowers the issues with insulin sensitivity, resistance, and type 2 diabetes. And we know that those things precede dementia. So what one of the studies was showing is even 58-year-olds who, when you go and get into your 60s, and some of those people were followed for 10 years, that they started showing signs in that age group. People show signs of cognitive decline. They were fine in their 50s or didn't notice any differences. So I would encourage people to include those foods in their diet, all people that are able to eat them. Okay? She's going with the mic, so I'm not in charge.
My question is, the raw fish, like sashimi, the omega-3 is rich in salmon. Do you have any comment regarding the raw fish? The omega-3 is which one is easy to absorb for the body?
Okay, the question is, if you eat raw fish, do you absorb the omega-3s from the raw fish as well as you would from cooked fish? And the answer is yes, they're both the same. The concern with raw fish is that there potentially can be food safety issues, and for some people with compromised immune systems or who are pregnant should avoid raw seafood. So that's really the caution. Okay, but great question. She has the microphone.
Does brown rice pasta, does it raise your glucose the same as like a regular pasta? You know how they can make pasta out of it? Does.
Okay, wait, I'm just acknowledging your question and what you want to know. Okay, so what she's asking is, when you eat a food, how quickly do those students run out in the hallway? How quickly does your blood sugar rise? That's called glycemic index, and more correctly, glycemic load. It's a way to measure how much carbohydrate is in the food. And you might think that anything that's whole wheat has a low glycemic index. Not true. Wheat bread is the same as white bread. Why? Because the particles, the finely milled grain, is as easily digested as white bread, and it gets out into your bloodstream. So what we try to do is, it would be best to eat the brown rice in that whole form. It is finely milled. I don't know the particular glycemic index for rice pasta versus chickpea pasta versus plain pasta. However, as soon as you start putting more fiber in that meal, you cook some of your brown rice pasta, and then you put some steamed collard greens with it and some nuts on top, and then you have a piece of grilled fish, lowers the glycemic index. If you sat down and just ate that carbohydrate in isolation, that's all you had, then you got to be concerned about it, but not in a mixed meal. Okay.
If,
Sorry.
If less glucose is good for brain health, what about cutting out carbs almost completely, like a ketogenic diet?
Okay, the question is about, and maybe some of you have heard about it, and it's the ketogenic diet. It's cut out carbs, get them below 50 to 75 grams per day. And you're probably saying, well, what does that mean? We normally take in around 300 grams. If you've ever gone on a high protein, low carb diet and you've gotten the hangries like you can't even imagine, you're just miserable to be around because you just feel like I need some sweets, I need something. It takes about 2 or 3 weeks to adapt to it. It is a very interesting program to follow. It is very difficult for many people. It's not reasonable for kids and people. Some athletes can follow it. It may be very beneficial for people with type 2 diabetes. There are some pros with it, but it is challenging for a lot of people. What I would recommend is based on, and this is getting a little bit more specific, is based on some of your medical history and genetic profile, it might be an ideal diet for you. For other people, it may not be. It may be unnecessary, and they could just eat healthfully and still include some carbohydrate. This is not an overly high carbohydrate meal plan at all, no.
What about the fungus family? I mean, a lot of mushrooms have a lot of really good nutrients, including some that are really good for the brain, like maybe lion's mane. What about those?
Okay, the question has to do with eating items from the fungus family, and there's some evidence about lion's mane. Mushrooms in general have some interesting classical nutrients like potassium. Depending on how they grow the mushrooms, it can be one of those sources of vitamin D that people didn't realize that they can get because fungi can make a precursor to active form of vitamin D. The research with lion's mane has been back and forth. I wouldn't put your emphasis on, okay, I eat that, adding it to your diet and enjoying it as part of your meal, that's fine. But focusing on a supplement, extract, I would question whether that, I don't know the side effects of that particular supplement. That's always my concern, is when you take things out of the context of the food item that it's in, have you lost some of the synergy that may have been there and that you're overloading your system with that particularly bioactive compound?
I have 2 questions. One question is, if you take like B12, can you end up taking too much and causing issues with your body if you're taking it as a supplement? And my second question is, if I was told that if I have thyroid disease, that I shouldn't eat a lot of spinach and broccoli and all of that. What do you eat instead, or are they talking about tons of it?
Okay, the first one is about vitamin B12. Are there risks with taking too much? It's a water-soluble vitamin. It's unusual, though. You can store it in your liver. We all generally, if we include meat and other animal products in our diet, we have about a 2-year supply. Vegetarians, strict vegans don't have much. They have to get a supplemental form. And unless you're taking a crazy amount, my answer is no. It's minimal risk. Though, if there's a medication that might interfere with a high intake of B12, you always have to check with that. And that gets down to going to a skilled healthcare professional, pharmacist, somebody who's knowledgeable in drug-nutrient interaction. As far as the thyroid, thank you, I forgot. As far as the green leafy vegetables, you would just have to look at, it's generally large amounts, and this is 1 serving per day. So it's not at every meal. So you would probably have to titrate that.
Hi.
One thing I didn't hear about is spices and herbs, like cinnamon maybe in your oatmeal and maybe some rosemary with your poultry. Could you just talk a little bit about that, please?
Absolutely. The question is about herbs. Cinnamon, for example, may be helpful in moderating blood sugar rise within that meal. You actually have to take a lot of cinnamon for it to do that, and you probably wouldn't like your oatmeal anymore. So that's why people get capsules. My feeling again on this is, let's look at other things you can do to improve your glucose balance in your body and insulin action. Exercise, types of foods that you're eating, how much stress are you under, how's your sleep. Those factors are very important as well. Saying that you take cinnamon okay, that's like a drop in a bigger bucket of many other things. So fresh herbs, though, and dried herbs, they contain antioxidants, and they're great to have in the mix, and that might help you enjoy beans more if you made up a great dish that had some fresh herbs in it that you otherwise wouldn't be so thrilled to eat.
I've heard that there's a growing body of evidence that brain dehydration is a contributing factor to Alzheimer's and dementia. Could you address that, please?
Well, not being a medical professional in that world, I do know, though, that the loss of water content of the brain cannot be corrected by better hydration. Certainly, older people, as they go through their later years, may not sense thirst as well and be as on top of hydration. That's a concern. But the shrinking of the brain, even though the moisture or water content of the brain is decreased, it cannot be corrected by better hydration. It isn't a matter of if you just drank 10 glasses instead of 4, your brain would be, the volume you had when you were 27. It's not that way. Okay.
As a person who does not like vegetables, can you recommend possibly a cookbook or something? Because I go to farmer's market and I just like, what the heck? And I have not a clue on how to prepare these things. So can you possibly recommend a cookbook or something? Because I do not go to farmer's markets. I don't go to the produce aisle. So.
Okay, will you eat? That's a really very common thing that people either hate vegetables or they hate fruit. How can you help me? Will you eat? I always start with, if I gave you a carrot, would you eat it? Yeah, but that's not enough. Okay, but we start with you at least will take a bite of it and you'll eat the carrot. Okay, could you slice up that carrot and put it in a bowl of mixed greens? Have we crossed the line? Okay, well, so you put nuts on it, you take some olive oil dressing. This is where you experimenting. There are wonderful cookbooks out there, but I have a feeling that given any complexity, you probably, or do you like to cook? No. Okay. So how about we go to Trader Joe's, you, me. We go to Trader Joe's and we pick out one of the salads. And we talk about why that salad is a great pick, and this one that has all these fried noodles in it is not a good pick, and then there you go. It's already made for you. And then you go to the other aisle where it's butternut squash already in a bag, and then you look online, butternut squash recipes. You go, oh, okay, I can steam this in the microwave and add some seasoning to it that you go and get. And you make up mashed butternut squash or roasted butternut squash with now Brussels sprouts. We just advance a little bit. Online information, like going to, there are several different sites that have really simple, easy recipes for vegetables. Okay, in fact, if you just say easy recipe with, and you put in the vegetable. So I challenge you to buy one vegetable in the produce aisle, go home quick, look it up, see what, you might need an onion to go with it, and just 5 ingredients or less. There are a lot of recipes out there that are doable and that taste good. Okay? I don't know where the microphone is. Oh, okay.
Can plant food assist in the restoration of the loss of dopamine?
Run that by again, Ken?
Plant food assist in the loss of dopamine, like
okay,
on the onset of Parkinson's.
Okay, the question has to do with dietary modification and the levels of dopamine, a neurotransmitter that's integral in that disease, and can it offset it? I've seen mixed results, so I can't make a recommendation. And even though my mother had Parkinson's, and that was something we worked on that didn't seem to be consistent impact. Yeah.
I heard you say that, or saw it also to either steam or raw vegetables.
Yeah.
And I thought I heard you turning down frying them. What if you saute them, quote unquote, low heat with, say, canola oil, which is high in omega-3s or something like that? Is that all right?
That is absolutely fine. The question is sauteing in a small amount of canola or olive oil, which are both high.
Low heat, is that
low
the
heat?
key?
That's fine.
Okay.
It's the charring, the real high heat that isn't desirable. And someone had asked about something like kale chips. You know, let's make kale taste good. curly works. Yeah. Not all the time. I have, yeah, I'm not against kale chips. It's just, seriously, you guys should sit in my office and listen to people. Do you eat green leafy vegetables? Oh, yeah, I have a bag of kale chips, look. And that is their green leafy vegetable intake. So we got to work on that. Yeah, so it's a nice snack, but it's not a staple. Uh-huh.
Can you comment on apple cider vinegar?
Okay, apple cider vinegar goes in and out of the media news as being a helpful way to lose weight, to adjust the pH in your body, and I hate to break it to you, it's really good in salad dressing, but it doesn't have those effects on the body. But if you enjoy making it and enjoy the taste, great. Okay, okay. Uh-huh.
I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about eggs.
Eggs.
And coconut oil.
Okay, let's start with coconut oil. Coconut oil is the most saturated fat out there. It has more saturated fat in its composition than butterfat does. It has no essentiality to it, meaning there are no essential fats in coconut oil. As an extract from a plant, meaning it has some plant particles, there are small amounts of antioxidants. But as a fat to choose to cook with, not a good idea. Not a good idea. And a lot of people have switched off olive oil onto coconut. Oil is a misnomer. It's a paste. It's a solid fat. So I would, unless you really like the taste and you want to make some cake frosting out of it, which is your, you know, I just wouldn't. Eggs are great foods. They're not identified in the Mind Plan. They are part of the Mediterranean diet. We've gotten away from just one a day because of the cholesterol, because dietary cholesterol is, for most people, is not an impact on their blood cholesterol. It's a wonderful food. It's one of our few sources, the yolk, of choline, which is important for brain health. So I wouldn't say include it, but like anything else, you don't want to go overboard on it. It's an excellent source of B12 and many other B vitamins.
What about all those other fruits out there, especially living in this valley? Do they fall into the sugar and sweets category, or where do we put
that's
those?
A good question. Do other fruits, and I get this a lot, oh, I better not have an apple, it's got sugar in it. What we're concerned about is added sugar. Added sugar that would go in an obvious thing like a candy bar, but added sugar that would go in ketchup, that would go in your yogurt, several teaspoons in your flavored yogurt. That's what we're looking at, not the naturally occurring sugar in fruit. So where do other fruits fit in the Mind Plan? They're there, but they're not identified. You can eat them, but they're not identified as having a specific effect on delaying cognitive decline. I ultimately, in the long run, think that certain other fruits will be brought into the mix as far as being identified as having potentially beneficial antioxidants. Fruit, very good food. I do see people, though, to the exclusion of vegetables, have many pieces of fruit. And if ultimately that should switch because there are other nutrients in vegetables that you're not getting in fruits.
So we can use them to make things taste better, and they're not hurting.
Absolutely, yes.
Like putting some apple or pear in a salad.
Yes.
And then you like the
Yeah, and then you could put some berries in it, too, if you haven't had many berries that week. Mm-hmm.
So about the egg, you said not overboard on it. How many per day would be a normal or a reasonable?
How many eggs
yes.
per day? One egg has about 6 to 7 grams of protein, 2 eggs then 12 or so. And you're looking at between 15 and 20 grams of protein per meal for most people in their adult years. So having 2 eggs at a meal, and that be it for the day, to get other types of protein sources and variety in your diet. That's really important. I would not, and I have athletes that come in and they literally eat a dozen eggs. And is that a problem? It really isn't, because that's an inexpensive, high-quality protein source for them. But I'm not pointing a finger at you. If you came in and had a dozen eggs for breakfast, I would say, hey, what else are you eating? Let's switch out some of those eggs. It would be more of a concern.
I have a question because my cognition is declining.
Okay.
Can you go over what you said about juicing, lowering nutrient content? I missed
okay,
that
the question is if you juice, you have a juicer, so you're going to juice an orange, perfect example, and you create some orange juice, and you grab some of the pulp and put it in there. You've left behind a lot of flavonoids and a lot of really great compounds that if you had peeled the orange and ate it, you would have gotten. And if you think about it, if you ate one orange, a whole orange, that's 60 calories. If you drink the juice from one orange, it doesn't seem like a lot. You'll end up drinking more. You'll want the juice from 2 oranges to be satisfying. We register volume for fullness rather than, so 2 oranges made into juice doesn't fill you up as much as 1 orange. And if I handed you another orange, whole orange to eat, you go, oh, really? Eat another one? You'd be stuffed. Or maybe 3. We have a more difficult time if we feel fuller with whole fruits rather than juice. So that's another benefit, because remember, we need fewer calories as we get older. Okay?
How about alcohol aside from red wine? Is that good or bad or indifferent?
That's a very good question, because I haven't met a margarita that I don't like. So the concern is that alcohol in moderation of any alcoholic beverage, for some people is okay. For other people, it's not. It may lead to people who are prone, it may lead to certain cancers, but you go above moderation. So what's moderation? 2 alcoholic beverages or fewer per day for men, 1 or fewer for women, and never going over that number per day. So it's not 4 on one night, 3 on another. So I know, I'm making a lot of you people nervous. It's not exceeding that. When you exceed that amount, we do see increased risk in cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline. It's damaging in higher amounts and not much above what you thought was good. So you think, another glass of red wine, big deal. Well, it ends up being a big deal, especially, and we don't know your genetics if you're genetically prone.
My family doesn't eat much of animal protein, mostly egg and tofu. You haven't mentioned it tonight, and in the supermarket they usually have a different soft, medium, and firm, and any difference in the nutrition contents?
Okay, a couple of questions there. So if they're not eating, so they don't eat seafood, your parents don't eat seafood?
No seafood, just pork.
Well, ask them if they can switch the pork to salmon. That would be one step. That would be, okay, no. All right, well then ask them to get omega-3 enriched eggs. What they do is they feed the hens, the egg-laying hens, a special feed that they then put the omega-3s in their yolk. It doesn't taste like fish. It gives a couple 100 milligrams of omega-3s in a yolk, and that's great. So do that. Can we do that? Okay, now I'll move on to the next one, was about tofu. It's in the beans. It's a legume. Okay, so you would so firm, soft, extra firm, whatever, no nutritional difference, except extra firm is higher in protein per ounce than the soft. Oh, is this our last one? That was a hint. I feel like I'm in my oral exams here. Good. Go ahead.
I had a question about bone broth. It's really come into vogue.
Oh, yeah.
And I've really assimilated it into my diet. And
Great.
so I wanted to get your feelings on that.
Okay, bone broth, which is a broth made with bones in it, typically chicken or turkey. You can make your own, you can buy it. It actually has a pretty decent source of protein, of high quality protein in it, touch of calcium. If you are so inclined, you could put it in when you make soups. You could use it as a beverage, heat it up, and that's fine. That's great. Yeah.